Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Senate candidate Katie Britt is leading in the polls. Also, Joe Bonner is the next president of the University of South Alabama. And it seems Republicans are not so pro-business anymore. Confuses me too. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and today I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter for APR. Welcome, Josh. Welcome, Susan.
Hey, guys.
Josh, there is a lingering stench over the State House in Alabama, and it has wafted to the halls of power in corporate Alabama. The wafting is probably this big old stink bomb went off. I've never had seen the legislature do more to disrupt commerce in Alabama, to hurt businesses in Alabama, than passing these anti-vaccine mandates, which absolutely do nothing but punish businesses. Break it down for us, Josh.
Yeah, it's that is correct. I mean, it's a really weird situation when you have the Republicans who have been so pro-business and so willing to bend to business for so long, essentially thumbing their nose at those same folks who are telling them, look, please don't do this, because we have a federal mandate on one hand, and now you're going to give us an anti-mandate on the other hand, and we're going to be caught in the middle of these two things, and we're not going to know which way to go, and both ways are going to cost us an extraordinary amount of money, because that's what's going to happen, is that they're going to be hit with these fines, because inside this anti-mandate bill that was passed is a requirement for employers in this state to maintain the employment of someone who is unvaccinated. So that means if you fire somebody because they're coming into your office and you believe that they may infect everybody, you are required to continue to pay them, that employee, their full salary and benefits while they go through this elongated process through the Department of Labor, whether you got to get administrative law judges involved, and they have appeals processes, which at the minimum is going to take months to work out. So you've got to continue to pay that employee while you then pay somebody else to do the job. Or your other option is to keep them employed and pay the federal fine, which, I mean, it's essentially the largest tax on business that you could possibly have, and it was passed by the Republicans against the wishes of the Democrats, who said, stop it, what are you doing to your business people?
I mean, Susan, in 2010, before 2010, the Republican Party in Alabama was in a minority. Mm-hmm. They teamed with the business community, and along with people being dissatisfied with the 2008 elections, they took over the supermajority. Now they are biting the hand that has fed them for a decade.
Absolutely. I mean, they teamed up with businesses in Alabama and said, let's take over the state house. Of course, they didn't realize they were going to get supermajority. But they teamed up with the businesses in Alabama and said, let's turn this into a pro-business state. And now they've turned right around and bitten them in such a way. I mean, this is huge.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the other thing, Josh, that really is, and I'm not surprised, is that we've seen this coming for years. We have talked about it, we've written about it, and it's because there is the base of the Republican Party now is not pro-business. They are anti almost everything. In other words, there is a fringe, I call them a fringe, but it's becoming the mainstream of the Republican Party that is opposed to big business, They're opposed to any kind of regulations. I mean, they just regulated the heck out of businesses. The Republicans used to be non-regulation, free trade. And this is not the Republican Party that these business leaders had expected. And now they've turned on them and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, it's you're right. It is something that everybody, I think, has seen coming. Everybody with common sense has watched this train slowly head towards this, this bridge that has been out for so long now, and know that there was a catastrophe coming. And honestly, we're probably kind of lucky that it's only this. It's because I mean the things that they're willing to dive into to satisfy this base, to keep pushing themselves further and further to the right, is it's pretty scary a lot of times. I mean, we're burning books at this point, and it's a problem because it's a one-party state. That's all it is. And it would be an equal problem if it was on the left, all right? Because we would have to keep pushing farther and farther to the left, and we would have people that are stuck in the middle that didn't like that. And so that's what you have to have, though. The reason why two-party systems work is because it forces that compromise and keeps things from the fringe, and it protects people like businesses. And if we don't get back to that, this is going to keep happening.
Well, it seems like they're more worried about the woke mob than they are keeping their belly full. I mean, that's sort of my...
Well, I mean, at this point, you can fire somebody for doctor-prescribed medical marijuana, but you cannot fire somebody over COVID.
You can't fire them for taking a life-saving vaccine.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, the Democrats, though, stood with the business community, and this, Josh, is happening more and more across the nation as the Republican Party has turned anti-business and more populist and a party of rancor and populism.
Yeah, it's become obvious to everybody that the Republicans really have no policy ideas anymore. Look at all the listen. That's not rhetoric from Democrats. Look at the policy ideas that have been put forth and the things that have been passed. The infrastructure bill, just the latest example of that. Those things come from Democrats now. And listen, the idea that Democrats have been anti-business is so nonsensical. I mean, of course they would like to have some regulation so you can drink the water and breathe the air. But, I mean, otherwise, they're very pro-business. I mean, the car industry in this state was started by Democrats, okay? Yeah. That's how this economic development stuff started, with Democrats. And so, it's join up, people. We're sane. We're normal. Join up.
Well, I mean, but those of us like me who are from the far middle, I just want to see policies that, there's a far middle. There's just not many of us in it.
Certainly.
We're not the vocal far middle. We're not angry about a whole lot of things except stupidity.
Right.
We're angry about stupidity. And being anti-business in Alabama will leave us being the smallest, poorest country or state in the Northern Hemisphere, Susan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just where we are. But we're going to have to leave it right there. A cry from the far middle. You're watching The V, the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Whether I am in Margaritaville enjoying a cheeseburger in paradise or cruising around on the Gulf of Mexico, I always make sure to vote. I am Jimmy Buffett, and I want to encourage you, too, to become a registered voter and to obtain a photo ID so you can have your voice heard and your vote count just like me. It is 5 o'clock somewhere, but fortunately, you have from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to get to the polls and exercise your right to vote. Keep making a difference for Alabama.
So you got caught speeding. But this time you got more than a ticket.
What are you in for?
Vehicular homicide.
Stop speeding before speeding stops you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, we learned this week that former Congressman Joe Bonner, the current Chief of Staff of Governor Kay Ivey, has been selected to be the next president of the University of South Alabama. We congratulate Joe Bonner on that appointment, but it's also a sad day, I think, for Alabama politics, as he has been such a strong chief of staff and such a positive role model for getting political things done in the state.
He has. I am so happy for him. I think he's really going to love this position, but it is a great loss for the governor's office. He has been her steadying pole. He has been her policy advisor through a lot of very tough issues, and he's done an excellent job. Excellent. Of course, not that she can't think on her own, but he has really navigated the waters for the governor's office for, a while now, and it's shown. It's shown. He's gonna be missed.
I mean, you don't share the same politics with Mr. Bonner, but you have to admit that he has been a very stabilizing force in Alabama politics for a long, long time, and even now. I think he'll do a great job down there, though.
Yeah, I think Joe Bonner, just talking to a lot of the people that deal with the governor's office, the lawmakers who deal with him from the Democratic side and the Republican side, I think they appreciated his professional, approach to handling things, and I think everybody, you could deal with Joe Bonner. You could go and talk to him, and it would be a conversation, and you could trust what he said, and and you could negotiate things with Joe Bonner, and I think that those things will be missed. He's very smart about the way he handled a lot of stuff, and I know that there is some. I don't want to say uproar or whatever, but there were some people obviously on either side. They pick a candidate in these races down at colleges and stuff, and so some people were not very happy with his selection. But I'll say this: listen, a lot of times what you need in a position like that is a political guy, to kind of navigate some of the funding issues and some of the politics that goes on at the state level. And maybe Joe Bonner is exactly the kind of guy that you need, and you can let the academics handle the academics portion of this stuff, and you can let the president handle some of the funding issues.
Well, there is nothing more political than a college campus.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize that colleges also have state funding. Mm-hmm. So somebody in that position being able to negotiate with the legislature is very important.
Yeah, it is. It is very important. Well, his successor has not been named, but I think the most likely candidate is Liz Fillmore, who is the deputy chief of staff. Mm-hmm. Susan, she's been with Governor Ivey since she ran for lieutenant governor in 2010.
She's been with her a very long time, a very dedicated, person and her staff. I think it's going to be a good thing. And one of the things I'm very excited about, if it is her, is this will be the first female chief of staff to a female governor in the state of Alabama.
Yeah. Well, that will be historic if she is the pick. She has a great reputation among both Republicans and Democrats. So if it's her, we wish her well, and whoever else it is, if there's someone else, we will look forward to working with them as well. Josh, another man from Alabama is charged in the assault on the U.S. Capitol January 6th. Shocking, right? That we would have Alabamians charged.
Yeah, no, not so much. What was that? 7 now? 7 or 8?
Yeah,
we're basically
I think that's 7.
That's pride of Alabama, college football and arrest at the U.S. Capitol for an insurrection. It's honestly pretty embarrassing that we have such a large group of people who were so easily misled into whatever the hell those people were thinking on that day at the U.S. Capitol when they stormed into there and went in search of lawmakers to try to stop the counting of a U.S. election. That's what they did. I mean, that's what their goal was when they went in, was to overturn a free and fair election that now hundreds of audits have proven to be absolutely free and fair. I hope they get everything that they deserve, these people.
Well, he assaulted, according to the federal government, he's assaulted a police officer with a flagpole, Susan.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not only embarrassing, it's disheartening that this political violence has become almost expected today.
It's crazy. I mean, I never would have dreamt this as a girl growing up, very patriotic and whatever, that our country would come to this level of violence. which I mean, he also damaged the building as
he's
well.
accused of
I
doing
mean,
that,
these are institutions that we, the taxpayers, have paid for, and are, you know, very fond of. For these people just actually go up there and just try to tear everything apart, it's you know, it's really gotten to the ridiculous.
Well, I know that there's some Republicans who do not believe any of this, but the facts are facts, whether you believe them or not. I want to go to one other thing here. It just struck me. You know, this is another thing we're seeing here, is that there are so-called Republicans out there who are so dissatisfied with the Alabama state legislature that they're calling them rhinos and we don't mean, which means Republican name only, and accusing them of doing all kinds of craziness, Josh. I mean, we're seeing an uprising against incumbents.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's
incumbents.
I mean, I think it was just on Thursday I reported that Tim Wadsworth in Winston County is going to have a challenger somehow to the right of him. I mean,
how do you get right of Tim Wadsworth?
I don't understand. He was, you know, he was the anti-establishment Republican just a couple of years ago, and somehow now he's not anti-establishment enough. I don't really understand. You know, what's going on anymore, man. It's what I'm saying, though. It's more evidence of what we were talking about in the first segment, is you've got to continue to push to the right because there's nothing to the left of this. And so until you establish a viable second option in here that sits on the other end of this, you can't get back towards the middle. You got to keep going right. And I honestly, I don't know what you do. I mean, abolish the whole government? I don't know what you. I don't know what you do to get.
We got a press release from a Republican candidate who said that he was running for office because they weren't pushing back against socialists like the Florida governor DeSantis was. What do you mean? We don't even have socialists in Alabama, do we?
No more roads. I mean, I don't understand what you're doing.
It makes no sense. Just like all the bills they do coming out of the legislature, it makes no sense. The think it through is busted, folks.
I mean, it's just, you know, Pitchfork Brigade is out and well. All right, we're gonna leave it right there. You're watching The V. We'll be right back.
You'll never guess what 400,000 people in the U.S. were using when they crashed their cars last year. No, not this. This. Distracted driving will kill you. Drive safe, Alabama. A message from your Alabama Department of Transportation.
Whether I am in Margaritaville enjoying a cheeseburger in paradise or cruising around on the Gulf of Mexico, I always make sure to vote. I am Jimmy Buffett, and I want to encourage you, too, to become a registered voter and to obtain a photo ID so you can have your voice heard and your vote count just like me. It is 5 o'clock somewhere, but fortunately, you have from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. to get to the polls and exercise your right to vote. Keep making a difference for Alabama.
Welcome back to The V, the voice of Alabama politics. Susan, this past week, two internal polls, one out of a super PAC that's backing Katie Britt, and one out of the campaign, has shown that Katie Britt in the U.S. Senate race has moved ahead of Mo Brooks and the rest of the field. You can question these because they're the internals from the campaign, but when you look at them, they start to make sense.
They do. She's gone from originally running in the teens after just a few months to now running in the 30 point.
Right.
You know, and she's up by 31 to 30, I think, over Mo Brooks. The interesting thing that I found, though, was she's 59% in the favorable category.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah, it is.
That's very huge. I'm very encouraged. I mean, she hasn't spent a dime in advertising or promoting or anything else like that yet. So it's going to be really interesting to see once she really gets this train going, how much speed it's going to pick up.
Josh, and you know, again, these are not your candidates, but when I look at races, I look at favorability. That is one of the key factors. If people like you, they're more likely to vote for you. I mean, she's at almost 60% favorable. Mo Brooks is way on the other end of that because he's just not a personable guy. I mean, Katie Britt is personable. She's committed. She's passionate. I mean, Joe is an old man, basically. I mean, not Joe. Mo is an old man. She's a young woman. I mean, it's kind of, you know, one of those deals. And he's a grumpy old man.
And she's very energetic.
Yeah. So
I mean,
that makes a difference.
So I think that plays a role in it. I mean, and you talk to Katie, or you watch her interact with people. She's a very personable person, and I think people kind of gravitate towards her and like her. Obviously, I'm not voting for Katie Britt, which is quite the endorsement for Katie Britt, I would say, in this state. But I mean, it's and Mo's screaming at people to get off his lawn. Look, there are people that like Mo Brooks, and that's
they
that's fine.
love him.
But I think you're right in terms of overall favorability throughout the state. I think she's gonna trounce him in that. The polls to me were fine. You look at the methodology of a lot of them; everything kind of shows the same thing. Which is she's going to trend up and catch him and pass him if she hasn't already done so. And I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. His campaign early on, those numbers were built on the name recognition from the January 6th stuff. And when people found out about her and found the other option, she's going to rise up.
Well, unlike a lot of politicians, as we all know, who look at you and pretend to be listening to you, Katie actually listens to what people are saying and is interested in it.
And in all fairness, we are not related to the Brits in any way that we know of, but we are fond of Katie.
Yes, we are.
We do know her. She and her family are quite. They're just lovely people. So just want to make that clear. I think one of the interesting things is Durant, who has been around just for a minute, he was polling about 17 points.
I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
I really was surprised because he's not been out there very much.
But Josh, he's got incredible name ID if you know anything about the Black Hawk Down story. That's for sure.
Yeah. His backstory and history there really help him out a lot. And I think he is that story alone. No matter what you know about him, as soon as you hear that story, it becomes something people want to like, and he becomes a candidate then that people want to like and kind of get behind. And so it's not surprising to me that he jumped up that quickly in there. I mean, the other folks that are still left in that race have got to be wondering exactly what they're doing at this point. And so because they're still polling. I'm talking about Linda Blanchard and Jessica Taylor. They're still polling way down in the single digits.
Yeah.
And
Blanchard wasn't even on that poll.
She was on one and not the other.
Not the other.
But I mean, it'll be interesting to see what I think. Linda Blanchard. I don't know what she's going to do. I mean, she's a very nice person. I just don't know what her lane is. I don't know what Jessica Taylor's lane is either, but we'll certainly see.
We're certainly going to follow it.
Yeah, I want to get to this, and it's in the category of more nonsense, really. And I like talking about this other political stuff, but there's not a whole lot of it, and there's a whole lot of nonsense. I mean, Josh, this last week, a lawsuit was filed by the Alabama Center for Law and Liberty, which is just a junior offshoot of Roy Moore's legal fund, the foundation that he started. It is also tied to the Alabama Policy Institute, which is a so-called think tank in Alabama, and there's a lot of people that support it, but their think tank is really just taking the Heritage Foundation message and cutting and pasting it.
Yes.
It's not Alabama solutions for Alabama problems.
No.
But the FabArc, Alabama company, is now filing a lawsuit against the mandates, claiming that the vaccines were made with aborted stem cells.
Right, because apparently they don't have Google over there. It just honestly, it takes 30 seconds to Google this up and figure out what. I mean, there's been 1,000 fact checks of this. And there are doctors who talk about what this is and where this claim comes from and how the aborted stem cells were from the 60s and the 70s. And they were not used in the actual vaccines. They were used in the testing of the vaccines to make sure that they were safe. And this is the reason why they are, in fact, safe and effective. But there are none in the vaccines themselves. So this is not a thing. All right. This is not something that you can sue. And this whole lawsuit could have been avoided, it seems, if you had just Googled something. If anybody at the law firm or at the construction company.
Yeah, and I had somebody the other day, still after all this time, go, "I'm not putting that chip in my body." Jesus.
No chips.
I mean, how many more absurd things can they come up with?
Well, I like the vaccine because I can now stick my car keys to myself and I don't lose them. So.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
You know, but to me, this is all about raising money. I mean, you know, these groups, API, I mean, you can look at the Southern Poverty Law Center and ACLU. They have to raise money. They're donor funded.
Yeah.
So this allows this Center for Law and Liberty and Truth and Justice and the American Way and God, Mom, Apple Pie, Flag on the 4th of July, Turkey in Every Pot group raise money, right, Josh?
Yeah, it's all the answers to all of your questions is money. All right, that's what it is. I mean, it's, you know, it's a wise man. That said the answers to everything is money. And if you're confused about something and you don't know why they're doing it, it's money.
It's always follow the money.
All right. Well, that's pretty much what we live by. If you can find out who's giving it and who's getting it, you know the answers. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.